Hey guys, it's Timber, and it's time for us again to go over the latest episode of Alone Season 11. So, in this video, we're going to talk about episode 3, and I'm going to talk about how nature is unexpected and uncontrollable. And in this case, I don't mean the rivers and the weather and the animals, I mean the nature within the human contestant, which is just as real as the external things. Spoiler alert. If you haven't watched episode 3 yet, you should probably quit this and go watch it first. Otherwise, you won't get a lot of the stuff I'm going to say here because I'm not going to give the whole context. You'll have to watch the episode to have the context. So go watch that and then come back and watch this for sure. But let's start at the beginning. I'm going to not dive too deeply into each contestant's actions. I'm going to say a few key things about each one, but if you want a deep blow-by-blow into each contestant's actions, you should listen to the official Alone podcast or go catch Alan Tenta's channel or something like that. They go very detailed about what everybody does. I'm going to focus more on the big moment from each episode and try to focus on that. But I will start basic and start with each contestant and just mention one or two things about them. Michaela is doing really well on the land, and she lands that huge fish. I remember the euphoric high that you get when you land a big fish like that because of that amount of groceries. It's nothing like when you bring that many groceries home from the store, and it's because of what's at stake. What's at stake is not your health and your life and all the stuff we talk about there. What's at stake is your story. Your story is at stake. This is applicable to all the contestants in every episode, so listen well. When your story is at stake, there's so much pressure. For me, I come home every year from when I'm at home from overseas. I go back in these woods, especially if there's a winter spell and there's some snow, and I go back in here and try to survive for a few days. It's just something fun I do to keep my skills sharp and to keep my mind at peace. I do that. There's no pressure at all because nobody's going to be watching. It's all very private. You know, if I get soaked, can't light my fire, I just walk out. You know, if I have a really down day, nobody knows. That's all private stuff, and that's how it normally is in life. But in this case, in Alone, what's so different about it is that everything you do, when you have record pushed on the camera, everything you do, it's like carving it in stone. Because once you push record on the camera, you can't change it. You can't reframe it, and it's outside of your control, and it's your story. It's your story that's going to be there. The editors get it. It's when you push record on the camera, everything that's in front of that lens, it's carved in stone, possibly. You don't have any choice over what the editors put. So there's so much pressure. Like, if I want to experiment with a bushcraft project and it turns out like crap, that's like, yeah, sure, I can throw it away. But if you experiment with it with the record button pushed, they might put that out on the show as your best foot forward. And that's your story. So there's so much at stake and there's so much pressure. That's the pressure that makes people shout for joy when they land a fish, is because your story is good and can continue. It's not necessarily about your survival, but your story. And that is what life is about. So we get Michaela catching this fish, and it's awesome. It's a huge fish. Great moment. She's doing well. I really like it. And in keeping with the kind and genuine person that Michaela is, I recently just found a package in my mailbox where she sent me some things from her land to mine. There's some native handcraft projects, bison, pemmican, and my favorite of all, Labrador tea, a packet of Labrador tea, which I don't have around here, and I'm kind of addicted to it after being in the Arctic. Drink that stuff every day. Thank you, Michaela. I love to watch Michaela's story. She really is that kind and genuine person that you think. Next, Dub. Here's what I like. In this episode, Dub is zipping around, racing around, taking chances, taking every opportunity. And Dub is doing two things different from pretty much all of us other contestants. Firstly, every single thing that moves, Dub is making a play on it. Dub is not sitting there like I might, seeing those ducks fly up the river and being like, yeah, they're gone, they'll never land, I'll just sit here. No, Dub is keeping his eyes wide open, and he's taking a chance on everything. That's being proactive. That'll pay off. That'll pay off, because one time those ducks will land, and Dub will be there with his bow drawn, I'm telling you. So, second thing Dub is doing different is that he's recording every single thing. I can tell that Dub is not leaving anything unrecorded. First thing, he's putting the cameras up. And that's maybe different from some other contestants too, to where if there's a attempt, like if there's ducks coming up the river like they were there, and you want to grab your bow, you might not think it's a serious enough event yet to push record on the camera. But Dub isn't worrying about that. He's recording every time. So somehow the editors are choosing to use those quick attempts, but I'm sure that there's footage there during that time of Dub catching pike like all of us are, catching more pike, shooting squirrels. I know that's happening, but they're focusing on those extra attempts that Dub makes, and he's just recording all of it. So that's going to pay off for Dub in the end, which it's his story. He's recording all of it, and that's going to pay dividends as he sees cool things play out on screen, I'm sure. I love that. Dub is proactive. Dusty, I think Dusty has killer instinct, because the squirrel will go through his camp, and he'll go get the squirrel, That's what it seems like on screen. And instinct comes into play there, because for a lot of people, if a squirrel runs through their camp, they might go after the squirrel, but that's not how to kill the squirrel. Dusty's instincts already know, if a squirrel runs through camp this way, exactly what actions to take. He's probably not even thinking about it. You grab your bow, and do you curve to the right or to the left? Do you come up to ahead of him and wait? Or do you push in right now while he's looking at you? All of those choices, Dusty probably isn't even thinking about it, because instincts are just making it happen. And that's what I call killer instinct, and that's good. That's good. William is doing his thing, looking solid, and you can just tell that William is very comfortable with the creatures that he's pursuing and the life that he's living. I don't think William is really nervous or thrown off of his game. I think he's very comfortable. Here's why the episode seemed a bit sad to me as I was watching it. I mentioned this before. The nature of the human nature that comes out shows you where darkness and pain has been hidden. Isaiah, we see him doing really good when he gets this squirrel, then he catches the fish, and I really think that's key. The fishing this year, to me, seemed to be all about organic bait. If you had organic bait, you were going to catch the fish. So he hasn't caught a fish, then he gets a squirrel. Once he gets those guts in the water on a hook, he has a fish very soon. I don't think the fish train is going to stop for him, because he's got that organic bait going. You save the guts from one fish and you catch 3 more, then you save their guts. You bury those guts up in a creek bank or something in different spots to where they can't all be gobbled up by a passing mink or something. And, then you always have some bait to throw out there. I think the fish train is going to keep on going for him. But I hear him say something, just breaks my heart. And I know that his brother passed away not that long ago, as mine passed away not that long ago. Not too long before the show, not too many months before the show started, my brother passed away. And I hear Isaiah on there, and he says, I'm not even close to healed, not even a little bit, mostly still broken pieces, I think is how he said it. And that tears me up, it breaks my heart, because I understand that, my heart just goes out to that, and I understand that in the silence, that box is going to open. It's going to open. And that brings me right to Peter as well. Peter has a lot of things pent up inside of him, and he mentions that his strategy has been to just put a lid on it and bury it. And I want to say that more people are like that than you think. Many people, like me, passed down from your dad and from his dad and from his dad, is don't you ever show emotion, don't you ever cry, don't you ever, bring that into the open. That makes you look weak. It's unbecoming of a man. That philosophy is there. And so I understand where Peter's coming from, because I was raised with that philosophy. And so I understand how a man can get to adulthood, that he can be in that position, and that he can even be teaching his kids that. I understand easily. But it's hurting him, and it's painful to see it hurt him. I don't like to see it hurt him, But I want to say this. We all have a box of memory, and we all have tools that we use to keep it closed. We have input into our brains. We have music. We have conversation, we have interaction, we have different distractions of various types. And all of those are tools that you use to keep that box of memory closed and where you placed it in your mind. The thing about alone is that not one of those tools is left. If those tools you've been relying on and they've worked for you, you're surprised by alone when you get there, and after a week of solid silence. Now, there's animals at this time of year. There's some noises there. The silence will get worse later. But after a week of absolutely no external input from other human thought, that box of memory is going to fly open. It's going to. And all of you guys can sit there and think, well, I'd never let that be a problem for me. Here's the deal. You don't know. Because you don't know how that box of memory is going to fly open and what damage it's going to do as those dark things rampage through your head. You have ways that you've built to stop them. And Alone is a show about what happens when those things are stripped away. That's what it's about. So, I went out there with lots of dark stuff in my box of memory. I don't want to get into it too deeply because I spoke about it on the show and they might want to be putting it on there, so I can't get into it too deeply. I almost hope they don't because it might look silly. I had a lot of death, surrounded by a lot of death. I've been in war and war zones over the past few years. My little brother died. Many people close to me died. I've been through puddles of people's blood, literally. And those things get stored up, and you put them in that box of memory, you shut the lid, and you think, I'm good, and you put it in a place. But when everything is stripped away, I'm just telling you guys to watch Peter's story with this knowledge that the box is going to come open for anybody, for everybody. And what's it going to do? I think there's something to be said about how much darkness is stored up inside somebody's head, and how that's going to be changed by Alone, how it's going to affect the person. But you can't stop it because you're a natural being. You're part of nature. Nature is unexpected and uncontrollable in this way, and that's what I said at the beginning. I've seen these comments now about, like, why don't they vet these people? Why don't they put them through some process that would show so that they don't get out there and this happen on day 8? Dude, they have loads of processes about that. It took months of that type of process to get cast on Alone. For me and for Peter, for all of us. But even you, the psychologist, even the contestant himself, doesn't know what's going to happen when that box of memory, of darkness stored in the memory is open, no holds barred. You don't know what's going to happen. For myself, I'm grateful that I have like a faith anchor. I think a relationship with the Creator that worked like a lifeline to hang on to in the swirling mass of dark memories as they came up. And I'm hopeful that doesn't, maybe get too much screen time on the show, whatever, for me. But for Peter, let's go back to Peter and let's say a couple things about him. Firstly, he has that pressure that he's facing of everything he does being on camera. Every moment that's recorded is being carved into stone, so it's outside his control. That's pressure that can kill. It's a lot of pressure. He has that memory box flying open, and he probably has a dad a little bit like mine that taught that really hard, or maybe not a dad at all. I don't know. But him as a father, he's talked about how he's teaching his sons the same thing, to suppress the memories, suppress hard things. And I want to tell you this. A lot of us have things like that going through us. But we just don't say so. We're not open and honest about it. And here's the deal about Peter, and I want you to watch his story with this in mind. Have some forgiveness as you watch his story, because you probably have a lot of the similar thing going on in you, but you haven't told anybody on national TV that. And Peter did tell you. Peter trusted you with that information. As you watch Peter's story, I know none of us want to see a strong contestant tap out and go away like that. None of us do. But watch his story with that in mind. That's what I ask about this episode. That's the big moment from this episode, and that's the big thing. And to Peter directly, bro, I hope that there's a lot of peace to be found. And I hope that through keeping the resolutions that came up in your own heart and mind, that you'll be above all the criticism and that you'll find all the peace that there is to be found. And it's there. There's no doubt. Anyways, all that aside, wonderful episode again of Alone, our favorite thing on TV. And who are we kidding, guys? We love this stuff. We love the survival stuff. We love the human stuff. We love it on screen when we see the raw edges of humanity. That's why we watch this show. That's why it's our favorite thing on TV. And that's why we'll keep watching it. Even though all the comments are made, we're going to keep watching it because we love this stuff. It's our favorite show. We love the show. We hope it goes on forever. Enjoy the next episode and the next and the next. And be kind to one another. Tenderhearted. Forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, has forgiven you.